So after daily driving the Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra for review, I thought it made sense when I took my SIM out to put it into one of the biggest competitors to that device, the Google Pixel 9 Pro XL. So that's what I did. I'm on now day 2 of sort of relearning the Pixel 9 Pro XL, and I have quite a few observations that I would like to bring to you guys today comparing these two devices that I think are both very, very good, and in a lot of ways, I feel like they just trade punches. In terms of hardware, these two devices actually have a fair amount in common. They basically have the same size screen, 6.8 inches versus 6.9 inches. They both have round about a 5,000 milliamp hour battery. 218 grams versus 221 grams for the Pixel, so they basically weigh the same thing. But they do differ in terms of hardware, I think really in a handful of particular ways. I mean, the most obvious one is that we have the S Pen on the S25 Ultra. This is something that I honestly can't speak too much to, just simply because I don't really use it. I'm just not good with a pen. I don't have good handwriting, and I just don't find this thing to be all that particularly useful. But for some people, that is going to be a major, major factor in deciding between these two devices. But they do also have some differences in the camera department. We have 3 cameras and we have 4 cameras on the S25 Ultra. And I think that that's worth digging into just a little bit. When it comes to the primary camera, most of the time these devices are going to trade punches. Samsung is going to be warmer, they're going to be brighter, they're going to be more saturated. This is the S25 Ultra. This next photo is the Pixel 9 Pro XL. And you can see all of those things sort of represented there in that image. It's going to be up to you which one you prefer. Now, there are instances like this where I feel like Samsung's camera actually does significantly better handling the darkness over here next to this potted plant, where Google, I think, over-brightened things and actually had quite a bit of noise. It's actually quite unsightly over there. By and large, though, if the lighting is good, these cameras are going to be very, very difficult to distinguish between just because they're both absolutely excellent. While it's not completely caught up in lower light scenarios, I have even been quite impressed with how well the S25 Ultra is now capturing motion. Obviously, I'm outside, the lighting is pretty good, but she's in motion. She's jogging towards me. Ignore her wet ear. She's got an ear infection and she's being treated. It's medicine. It's medicine leaking out of her ear. She's fine. Don't worry about it. She's captured really, really nicely. And right here, the Pixel 9 Pro XL, right there with it, looking just about as sharp, really going punch for punch. Now, as I mentioned in my S25 Ultra camera review, they're not quite caught up with Pixel in terms of motion blur, so this is my scientific test where I'm rolling a ball across the table. Here's the S25 Ultra, here's the Pixel 9 Pro XL. I think the Pixel still has a slight edge. But compared to where they used to be with the S23 Ultra, where you could just simply not capture a photo that even approximates this most of the time, they've caught up quite a bit. A place where Samsung shines, though, is the fact that they have that additional zoom camera. So this is a 3x shot, and in good lighting, that 3x camera is going to do pretty well. If you're using your Pixel, you're going to do either a 2 or a 3x digital crop. And when you do a digital crop, it's just not going to look quite as good as an actual optical zoom would have looked. Now, of course, both cameras do have a 5x optical zoom, and this is the 5x zoom on the S25 Ultra, and this does look really quite good. And here's the same 5x on the Pixel 9 Pro XL. They're quite close, although I do think the Samsung looks a bit more detailed, even if it is a bit odd that it's the Pixel that does look a bit over-brightened and over-warmed. Of course, we do have to go up to 10x as well, which to my eye looks almost lossless. It basically is right there with the 10x optical zoom of the older Ultra phones. And for Google, look, it's not bad at all. It's not bad at all. It's actually quite good, and I wouldn't complain about this, but I would say that I probably still do also prefer the Samsung there, but we have to go even further, right? Because we need to punch this thing up to like an extreme zoom to really get this point across. So here's 30x for the S25 Ultra, and here's 30x for the Pixel 9 Pro XL. These are very, very close. Kind of similar to that 5x and that 10x. I think you could probably make a case for either one. If we zoom in right here though, it's not a lot, but just pay attention to this area here. This is pretty low detail. If we go to the Pixel, is that maybe a little bit even lower detail? It's very, very hard to say. But I think that the biggest thing when you're doing the extreme zooms that stood out to me is how much easier it was to frame my shot on the Samsung phone versus the Pixel phone. The Pixel phone feels like it's just drifting all over the place, whereas with the S25 Ultra, it was absurdly easy to frame and capture that shot. But going back to that 3x, the hardware difference. One has the 3x, one only has the 5x. Why do you need a 1, a 3, and a 5? Well, because sometimes you're going to shoot at 3 or 4x, and it's really good to have an optical zoom in that mid-range so that you have a really nice shot there. With Samsung, I feel like from 1 to 10, I'm going to get a great shot. With the Pixel, 1x is fine, 2x is fine, 3x is starting to get weak, 4x is not great, 5x is good, and then up to 10x is also going to be really good, but you have that band there in the middle that's just a little bit weak. You guys know me. I'm a Pixel guy. I went into this thinking I'm going to prefer the stills on the Pixel, I'm going to prefer the video on the Samsung, and probably the zoom on the Samsung, but over the last couple of days, going back to the Pixel and taking some comparative shots, I'm not even sure that that's true. I might prefer the Samsung phone almost across the board. Sure, there's going to be some instances where I'm going to like the Pixel, motion blur, maybe even in low light. But man, the Samsung cameras these days, they've gotten very, very close to the Pixels. One more place, though, where the hardware does sort of differ, where something stands out, is with the anti-reflective screen on the S25 Ultra. I don't think I even really need to say a whole lot more than just show you this. Once you get used to using this thing outside and you try to go back to any other phone, it doesn't matter what it is, if it doesn't have that anti-reflective coating, you're going to miss it. You're going to want to go back to that S25 Ultra. My lord, what a difference that makes. If I put both of these devices on screen side by side, I can kind of go over some software things that really stand out to me about these devices. So first off, maybe you think I'm weird, but I'm just a sucker for the Pixel interface. I just like the way that it looks better than the Samsung interface. Now, don't get me wrong, I think that One UI 7 actually does look pretty good now, but it's just a little bit too iPhone-y for my taste, whereas the Pixels look like Pixels. They don't look like anything else. They don't look like they're trying to really copy anybody, and I appreciate that. We have a couple of weather applications that really underscore the differences in the different approaches and the philosophies, the visual styles of these two devices. Like, man, you really can't get much more different than that. If we scroll through this a bit, I don't want to show you my radar, but you can kind of see a little bit of what I'm talking about here. This is completely subjective, right? You're going to like the one that you're going to like. Although, that being said, I really, really do love the way that the lock screen looks on the S25 Ultra. I like that I can have sort of my wallpaper just showing all the time. I think that that looks really, really good. Something that isn't subjective, though, is the fact that on the S25 Ultra, you have some really nifty features like that, the floating window. I don't know why you would need a floating window of your weather application, but just as an example, it was on the screen. There it is. You can sort of pin that up there to the corner and have that on screen. You have nothing of the sort for the Pixel. But at the same time, anytime you start talking about generative AI stuff, I'm almost exclusively going to prefer the Pixel. For Samsung, we have Drawing Assist on the left, and on the right side, we have Pixel Studio. I like the fact that they give you little suggestions of things that you can do. We're going to forego those suggestions, and we're just going to try to create our own. We're going to try to create the same thing on both. Now, notice on the S25 Ultra, this is actually kind of cool. You do have the ability to, yes, type what you want, but you can also show it a picture and restyle that image, or you can actually try to sketch it. We'll give them a big thumbs up for additional options, but in other ways, they have far fewer options. So on the Pixel, look where it says freestyle. Notice how many different styles I have to choose between. For Samsung, I only have those 3 options. So we're going to go with 3D cartoon on both of them. Oh, I accidentally started it. We're going to generate on the Samsung as well. So the Pixel got a little bit of a head start. Here comes the Samsung. I would say timing-wise, they were very, very similar. So in this instance, Samsung has went ahead and generated an entire background. They put it in a field with flowers and light behind it. They've done a whole bunch more stuff. Otherwise, these images are actually remarkably similar. Google does tend to only just show you exactly what you told it. Something else that the Pixel can do, if you click on where it says stickers and tools, you can click on that image that you just made. Let's go ahead and try to get all of it. And now we can click make a sticker. And that sticker can be sent to your friends basically as an emoji. So it gives you something to do now with that image. And you can also do other things like put text on it and other stickers and things like that. So there's just there's a point to Pixel Studio at the end of this, whereas with Drawing Assist, it's just to make the image. Let's try and generate one more on both of them, and we can do it at the exact same time. Let's see which one finishes first. It's happening on device. The Pixel is faster. And again, Samsung is sort of giving you more than you're asking for, and you might like that. Personally, I do prefer for it to only generate what I'm asking for. If I wanted it to be in a field of flowers, I would tell it that. And there we go. If I tell it that I want it to be in a field full of flowers, that's what it's going to give me. So now we're looking at generative edit on the Samsung phone and Magic Editor on the Pixel. I do want to point out that Pixel does have this refined selection thing where I can go ahead and add another object or I can subtract another object. And that actually does help you really fine tune what you are trying to get in your edit. So just something to keep in mind. And on both of these, we're just going to try to erase that bench and see what we come up with. Now for both, they're going to be sending this to a data center and then sending the result back to us. And I would say that both of these did a pretty remarkable job. The one thing, again, I want to point out, if I long press on the screen on the Pixel, it shows me what I did. If I do it on the Samsung, it zooms me out to show me the original picture. That's a little bit annoying, but still, they both did a pretty good job. But let's say I want to add something to the image. Over here on the Pixel, let me just zoom in on this bench and I'm going to circle it and I'm going to click on Reimagine and I can just type in what I want to have there. Over on the Samsung phone, I can do sketch to image, but that's going to require me to pull out my S Pen, or I guess I could just use my finger, and try to draw what I want to be there. Now they are, I believe, changing this. They're going to give you the ability to type what you want, but at time of recording, that's not an option. So I'm going to have to try to now draw a crow. And that's the worst abomination you've ever seen. Let's see what they can both do. So one just has the location and the words. One has a terrible sketch. This is, look, maybe you're a great artist. Maybe you're not. So what we have over here is, it's like a creepy, it's like a creepy swan. On the Pixel, we do definitely have a crow. It's a little bit strange looking, but luckily it generates more than one. So let's go. And normally one of these is going to end up looking good. And I would say that's absolutely fine. That's the shadow probably needs to be there, but there you go. You got a black crow. Over here, I don't know what I would do. Maybe I could color it in. Maybe we would understand, how is it going to get color? You're just really limited with sketch to image. Now, this might be something that just over time I'm going to adjust to, but I just have to tell you how much more I prefer Gboard over Samsung's keyboard. Samsung's keyboard has some stuff that I really like. I actually kind of dig the little AI button here that will allow you to quickly do spelling and grammar check. I love that is there. The problem is that I have to use it all the time because whether I'm swipe typing or I am voice typing, man, can I not get this thing to do what I want it to do. Over on the Pixel with assistant typing, I just talk to it. I tell it the punctuation that I want. I know there's a setting where it can auto punctuate. I don't like using that. And it just works. It's just really, really reliable and really, really consistent. And it does also have a proofreading function. So for me, Gboard is more accurate. It's easier for me to use. And the proofreading function is there. SwiftKey is so close to being good. But man, something about the accuracy and the voice typing, there is no option to tell it to not auto-punctuate. It's just going to try and put punctuation in there. And for me, it gets it wrong like 80% of the time. I think that there's also a thing maybe with spaces after periods. There was something else that was driving me crazy that there just wasn't any setting for me to be able to change. So Gboard is a big win. Keep in mind, if you switch to Gboard on the Samsung phone, you're not going to have access to that AI proofreading thing. And you would think that all you would have to do is type something, and then maybe you could just highlight that text, and that little AI button that appears in some apps with the copy and paste stuff would appear, but it doesn't pop up in all apps. It's inconsistent. Sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. So you might be stuck with the Samsung keyboard if you value that feature. I guess the way that I would sort of describe it is like this. Samsung tries a lot of things and they do a lot of stuff very, very well, but it feels like when Google puts a feature out, whether it's, Pixel Studio or Magic Editor, it's like they have a better idea of how people are going to use it than Samsung does. So Samsung occasionally rolls things out that sound cool, but then when you use it, it just isn't all that useful. It's not as useful as the Google version. Things like Now Brief or the Now Bar that they introduced on these phones are effectively completely useless to me. I'm just not going to use them because they're just not useful. The stuff Google rolls out, I tend to use, with maybe exception to Pixel Screenshot, which I have not used ever. When it comes to speaker performance, they are both very, very good. But I would say that the S25 Ultra is just a little bit more good than the Pixel phone. Seems like maybe it's a little bit louder. There's a little bit more bass, some more body to this sound. Just seems like it hits a little bit harder. Again, no slouch, but I do think the Samsung's got a win there. Battery life for me has been quite similar. I have been used to using folding phones for a while that maybe get 5-ish, 6-ish hours of screen on time in my use. Switching to the S25 Ultra, I was like, wow, 7+ hours of screen on time. That's fantastic. Switch back to the Pixel, and I was like, wow, 7+ hours of screen on time. That's fantastic. No real drop off at all there. I think that this S25 might top off a little bit quicker, but it's not a big difference. They're both great when it comes to battery life. It's honestly a great problem to have. Two phones like this in my possession that are both just absolutely fantastic, and I really like them both for different reasons, and I like the S25 Ultra a lot more than I thought I was going to. And sometimes the way that you really know how good a phone is when your review period is over and you take your SIM out and put it into another device, how quickly you actually miss that device. I've reviewed plenty of phones that I liked, but when I took my SIM out, I didn't really think twice about it. But the 25 Ultra kind of beckons me. It makes me want to come back to it for some of these reasons. Maybe the biggest is that anti-reflective screen, but there are things that pull me back towards it. I don't know, maybe the biggest advantage Google has is that Samsung's phone is $12.99 and their phone is $10.99, and they have actually run it on sale a couple of times as well, so that kind of does maybe bridge the gap for some people also. Guys, let me know what you think. If you had to go with one or the other, which way would you go? Do you like the software of the Pixel, the hardware of the Samsung phone? Where do you sort of split on all of these issues? Is there anything that I left out, like Samsung DeX, that I could have easily talked about as well? There's so many things. This video could be an hour and a half long if I wanted it to be. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more content like this, and until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.